The 2026 Pursue release shifts the study of unidentified anomalous phenomena into the realm of formal military intelligence, providing a verified dataset of physical anomalies that the government could no longer ignore. Even at the highest levels of aerospace observation, the phenomenon persists. This STS-80 image captures a thin, elongated white object hovering against the Earth's horizon. Internal records show the Air Force has tracked these encounters since 1948, establishing Project Sign to investigate flying discs. Investigators flagged characteristics defying aerodynamic logic, from an extreme rate of climb to the ability to remain motionless in midair. The intelligence community eventually sorted these encounters into 3 physical profiles: silver discs, intense balls of fire, and elongated, cigar-shaped craft. This tabulation chart shows the geographic and temporal density of the phenomenon. In July of 1947 alone, sightings were reported across Muroc Airfield and the entire Pacific Northwest. These were not isolated incidents. The military was looking at a consistent pattern of objects that appeared to break the laws of physics, forcing them to develop a series of explanatory hypotheses. One early theory was that these green fireballs were simply a new type of meteorite, but as scientists dug into the reports, the natural phenomena hypothesis began to collapse. During a classified conference, astronomer Dr. Lincoln La Paz challenged the meteorite theory, noting that witnesses reported impossible sounds. While the objects had the speed of a high-velocity projectile, they also emitted a whining, whistling noise that physicists found impossible to reconcile. When natural explanations failed, the military turned to a foreign technology hypothesis, the fear that these were secret Soviet aircraft designed to test U.S. defenses. Analysts began mapping sightings against strategic industrial centers. They found a high concentration of reports near the atomic research facilities at Oak Ridge and the Hanford Works. Despite the intensive tracking, the final Air Force conclusion was that the existence of these objects was substantiated, but their origin remained not discernible. By the mid-50s, intelligence officers admitted that if these objects were foreign developments, they involved new principles of aeronautics that weren't considered practical in our own research. The terrestrial explanations had reached their limit. As the dataset grew, the reports became more anomalous. This image, labeled Incident 3, shows an elongated craft in low flight, part of a file that included an FBI-documented report of a tracked object landing and discharging an occupant before departing. These close-range encounters led groups like the deputy director of NICAP to argue that these were solid, extraterrestrial objects rather than misidentified planes or weather. It was a conclusion based on remainder logic. Once terrestrial aircraft and divine origins were methodically eliminated, the extraterrestrial origin became the only available alternative. The government's own data collection had reached a point where the most radical explanation was the only one that fit the evidence. Faced with an unsolvable reality, the government strategy shifted from investigation to the management of the public's psychological reaction. In 1953, a scientific panel formally recommended stripping the objects of the aura of mystery they had acquired in the eyes of the public. They proposed an integrated program to reassure the country that there was a total lack of evidence for any hostile forces behind the sightings. This era of public relations rebranded the mystery. Headlines about saucers were countered by statements describing the encounters as mundane misidentifications or simple psychological problems. This policy of denial and debunking was viewed as a national security measure. Officials were desperate to prevent a flood of false information from overloading emergency communication channels. The legacy of the Pursue files reveals a government struggling with a core mystery it was simply unequipped to solve. Secrecy became a tool for managing a phenomenon that refused to fit into any existing framework. The declassification shows that, while the files are finally open, the core mystery remains as vast and unanswered as it was in 1947.